What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Blitz City Podcast, where today, as promised, man, we got FBS Friday, episode 3, with my knowledgeable panel, Blue Bloods, my guy, Clay McCarter, and a very special guest, Coach Reed from 24/7 Sports Composite. Coach, Clay, Blue, how y'all doing, man? Thank y'all so much for being on again.
I'm good, man. I'm glad to be here, man. You guys got a great situation, good follower, man. I'm excited to hear what you guys got to talk about tonight.
All right. Well, listen, let's get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. First, I saw something on Instagram. I thought it'd be fun, so I wanted to ask y'all. Let me pull it up. Build your Turkey Bowl squad. I kind of like this. I kind of like what I seen in this. You know, you got the head coach, you got the quarterbacks. Me personally, I was going Nick Saban. You know, for the head coach. When it comes to the quarterback, I like C.J. Stroud. You know. Blake Corum at running back. I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is that guy at receiver. I was gonna go Marvin Harrison Jr. And then to top it off with the defense, I'm gonna go Will Anderson. But I want to know y'all.
Oof. I'm sorry. I'm on my phone, so I'm looking in. I got Saban, of course, a head coach. Quarterback, I do like Stroud. Running back, I'm going Bijan Robinson. Big fan of Bijan Robinson. The guy is an absolute stud. He's getting Saquon comparisons and stuff by Matt Miller and everybody. I'm gonna go Jalen Hyatt, and I like Will Anderson, but I'm gonna go Jalen Carter.
Whoa.
Okay.
Will Anderson's a better player overall, but I feel like I like the Jalen Carter at that part of the field.
I got you.
I like that. I think I'll go Saban. I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna go Caleb Williams just because of his versatility. Because I think he brings more with his legs than C.J. Stroud does. I'm gonna go with Bijan Robinson over Blake Corum because I think he can do more as a receiving back as well. I like the more options I have on my offense, the better. Wide receiver, I agree with Kobe. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has the most well-rounded game of all the receivers on there, and then I'm going to go with Will Anderson too, man. I think this year, he doesn't have the gaudy stats that he did last year, but I think he's probably the most consistent defensive prospect in college football right now. So I'll go Will Anderson for my defensive player.
Well, guys, I'm going to be a little bit like you. I think that you got to go with Coach Saban because of the consistency. I mean, he's been the model of consistency, and you got to prove you can do it over a long period of time. I've seen Caleb Williams play a lot. I saw him play a lot at Oklahoma. I saw him play live several times. I think he's box office. I think that he actually is the best quarterback in the country, and so I will go with Caleb. Running back, I got a chance to see this guy live this year. I'm going to go Chase Brown from the University of Illinois. Big time back for the Fighting Illini. Kind of in the mold of the Wisconsin backs that Brett Bielema has been known for. Has had an excellent season. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get an invite to New York this year. At the wide receiver position, I mean, Marvin Harrison has just been special, man. He's been phenomenal. He's not only has he been consistent, he's also shown you that he can make some of the bigger plays. Everybody can't make big plays in big games. Some guys aren't built for it, and he is. I think he gives you a chance to win every game that he's out on the field. Defensively, I just think that Will Anderson is the best that there is right now. I know his numbers aren't the same as they were a year ago, but I tell people all the time, numbers can lie to you. He's getting keyed on a lot. Teams are doing a lot to make sure that he isn't the guy that beats them. He's going through double and triple teams. So I still think he's the best defensive player in the country.
I like it. Now moving on. A certain player made comments before the game tonight. Whose nickname is AR-15, Anthony Richardson. How do you feel about this? Because it's rivalry week. I get it. I love the energy. You're excited. You know, you don't like the particular school across the water or whatever it is. But how do you feel about this when it comes to players giving the other team bulletin board material? Like, I want to know your thoughts.
Oh, I think it goes both ways. Listen, you don't want to necessarily give them bulletin board material, but you're talking about 18 to 23-year-old kids. When you ask him that question, what do you want him to say? We're going to go out there and lose. Like, I mean, you can give the professional answer, but I think he was real with it. Listen, you shouldn't go into every game thinking you can win. You want the confidence from your quarterback. I don't think he went any disrespectful or trash Florida State in any way. Like, if he went out there and was like, listen, the DBs are garbage, the D line can't touch me, that's a whole different thing. And yes, don't say that. But he said, listen, we're going to build momentum with a big win this weekend. I like the confidence coming from your starting quarterback.
Okay.
This guy's a Florida Gator. Have you guys ever heard of a guy named Steve Spurrier, who was the king of trash talking? And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but I don't have an issue with what he said. I don't think he said anything malicious. He has some confidence. Now, in this day and age, if he doesn't get it done tonight, he'll be attacked tonight on social media, and he's going to need to turn his phone off. I hope he has an extra battery, right? And so that's a decision that he'll have to make, but I don't have an issue with what he said at all.
I just got done saying before you joined in, before we started the countdown, man, I definitely love the confidence. I don't knock him for it one bit. I'd rather have a guy come out and say that than come out and be like, yeah, which they wouldn't do, but come out and be like, yeah, I don't think we're going to win this game. It's going to be tough, or downplay it and make it seem like your team's not going to win or have no confidence as a leader. But he's a young guy. Young guys are going to, do their thing. I'm 25. I'm not much older than Anthony Richardson is, but I will say I hope you back it up, because, Coach, you touched on a good thing is in this era, he is going to get a downpour on Instagram, on Twitter, a bunch of things. There's going to be TikTok videos made out of it. I mean, it's the reality of where we are in the world. But
Coach 30.
I hope you back it up. And as a Gator fan, go Gators.
I also want to say too, all of us on here have interviewed players. We're all working in sports media. Man, I love when players feel like they can be honest, because all of us know you've had players on the show or interview players off the record. Man, you can tell when it's just, and they don't want to say, like, I would much rather have a player who isn't afraid to just speak his mind, right, be honest, and just be himself. And I love it from AR-15 on this one.
I agree with you. Like, the media train answers that they give you, and you understand it. You're not mad at it, but it's like, they don't really feel that way. So I get what you're saying.
When you got to keep it PG for the cameras and stuff, I definitely get that, because there's a lot of guys that you see them on social media and you see the videos of them being themselves, and then you see them behind like the press. It's like that. He's not like that.
Right. Exactly.
He's not.
All right. Now, it's rivalry week. The big rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. Ohio State took it to the next level, man, by putting tape on the helmets to replicate Michigan. And I'm just like, I like it, but like at this point, at a certain point, is this going too far? Like, what do you like? Is this like a waste of time and energy? Like, what are we doing right now? How do y'all feel seeing this?
No, I mean, you're talking about the same rivalry where they have literally written legislature banning letters in states for this rivalry week. Like, if I'm not mistaken, like both campuses block out O's and M's on campus and stuff for this one, and like take it off. Like, you can't say certain things because of this. I love it. The more passion, the better. It doesn't bother me one bit, and I love the passion. I think that's what makes this rivalry one of the best in the country, hands down.
The Ohio State-Michigan rivalry is a serious one, man. You're not even allowed to write the letter M, in the state of Ohio. It's a different deal. I don't think it's going too far. I think it shows them the seriousness of the rivalry and how serious they are about it. When you have a big-time rivalry like this, everything is on the table. Nothing's out of bounds, man. And I'm excited to see the game tomorrow. I'm excited to see what happens here.
I personally don't have a problem with it. I get it. It's severe rivalry. It's a rich history. And then being where you are in the season, man, that could be a make or break for you with how the playoffs are set up. And they're set to play every year. They're both two powerhouse franchises. It's tough, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of things that they've made that are very well known during this week that you can't do. But at the same time, is you gotta play to the tradition. It is what it is, you know. I mean, there's gonna be things you got to do to get your football team ready in whatever way that you feel fit. I mean, if a head coach, if a head coach that's getting paid millions of dollars and has that kind of power thinks that that's something that he's okay with, I'm fine with that. It's tape.
Cool. Now, getting a little bit more serious, just a little bit. We all know what happened regarding the Michigan State tunnel incident. 7 players have been charged with aggravated assault or some type of assault. The player who actually swung his helmet, I think he was charged with felonious assault. Hearing that, do you think that this was needed? How do you feel about these players being charged with assault? Like, what are your opinions on it?
I think, we talked about this on the show already, and you got to look at it from both perspectives. They'll work it out legally, and hopefully none of these players' careers are ultimately ruined by this. But at the same time, man, when you're swinging a helmet with a player that doesn't have a helmet on and he's already getting stomped out and is 1v8, man, I can't blame him for pressing charges, and I hate it. But at the end of the day, man, you got to be able to control yourself in that situation. And we all 3 talked on here in 4, because we also had Coach on here at that time. Man, at the end of the day, 18 to 23-year-olds are going to make mistakes. Nobody got charged with anything that should alter their career and end it. But there had to be consequences for your actions. And if that helmet hits in the wrong spot, we all know what could happen. We saw it with Myles Garrett. We know the consequences. It happens, man. And sadly, he had to pay the consequences of his actions.
I definitely agree, Blue. I will say that we did talk on this already. We did all shed light. And I feel like all the 3 of us, and then, of course, Coach being on and hearing it from another coach's perspective and having another coach with us, they're young guys, man. At the end of the day, they're young guys. They're still becoming men. When you have people come to your house recruiting your son to go and play, and they're meeting you as from a parent side of it is you're going to be around him more than I'm going to be around him when he's still in the process of becoming a man. And becoming a man is through a series of things in life. So I think, yes, they're young kids. They made a mistake. Was it called for? Not necessarily. Could have been prevented. Yeah, I think that's something that we'll get into at some point tonight as a topic. But I would say wrongfully charged, no. They make mistakes. You have to still look at it from all aspects here. It's not just about, they're football players. Oh, it happens. No, it's you like you said, one wrong swing of that helmet could have been something that was irreversible, and that might be a little extreme, but at the same time, it is a real possibility. So yes, I think that the right decisions were made. I hope they learn from it and doesn't impact any of their careers.
My take on it is this, guys. I think that what the Michigan State players did was wrong. I think that there definitely should have been punishment. And if those punishments resulted in them being kicked off the team, if those punishments resulted in them not being able to play football anymore for Michigan State at the discretion of the Michigan State administration and Coach Mel Tucker, then I don't have an issue with that at all. They made a decision, an emotional decision, to engage in that act. However, I do have a problem with Jim Harbaugh forcing the issue of charges being pressed. I think that it's very hypocritical, not only from Jim Harbaugh, but also from the University of Michigan, for several reasons. Jim Harbaugh, as the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, coached Aldon Smith, who got charged 3 times with DUIs, who got charged twice with felony weapon possession, who got charged for marijuana possession, and he never saw fit to not play Aldon Smith when he was able to play. He fought for him to play, and every time the NFL released Aldon Smith from suspension, he put him in a 3-point stance so he could rush the quarterback. And so he has a history of playing guys who have done their own felonious behavior. And so from that standpoint, I think that Harbaugh's out of line. Juwan Howard, the basketball coach at Michigan, punched the Wisconsin coach in the face. And nobody from Michigan felt like Juwan Howard needed charges pressed on him for assault. They went through a lot to defend him and try to make the situation as minute as possible. It's a situation that I think that Michigan's reaction to it and Jim Harbaugh's consistently pushing the issue of pressing charges, I think that's over the top. That's my opinion on it. But the kids still have to live with the outcome of the choices they make, no matter how it goes down. But I think that Jim Harbaugh was way out of bounds in how he responded to it.
And, in response to that, I think Michigan kind of beefed up security in their own tunnel to try to prevent this thing from happening again. And I was going to ask you, how did you feel about that? But what I really want to ask you now is, I don't know how many stadiums in America only have one tunnel, but should every stadium that has one tunnel take that precaution that Michigan took going forward, or do you think this was just one isolated bad incident and they shouldn't really change anything?
No.
I mean, yeah. We talked about it. How many weeks ago did we talk about on the show? That was my first point. Before we talked about the kids, before we talked about the situation is, man, absolutely. I was like, man, Michigan has one of the largest athletic budgets out there. You can afford more security. You can afford to redesign the tunnel. You can afford to have protocols in place where one team goes in for a cool off period and you have the winning team stay on the field, or the Michigan, if it's at home, they stay on the field regardless of the result until the opposing team gets off the field. It was a lack of protocol, and it's a lack of it was a mismanagement by Michigan. And there's no reason that there shouldn't have been already increased security in there when you got a bunch of young kids already hyped up off adrenaline, upset that they lost. It's a passionate in-state rivalry. I don't understand how they didn't see something eventually happening like that.
For sure. And like you were saying, you touched on it already in a previous week, and it made sense. It was the first thing you talked about. I give you credit for that. That's whenever I figured out what we were going to be kind of talking about tonight, I thought about that immediately. There's no reason. The checkbook there is large. Okay, like you said, it's large. They are one of the most historic universities, football programs in the existence of college football. Something was going to transpire one day, and I think hopefully this sets the precedent for future things, that if you don't have two tunnels, now's probably the time to go ahead and spend the money. It's not going to do anybody any harm by doing so. It's not. It's let's redesign it. Let's go ahead and do this to separate this from future incidents that happen, because I'm all about big tradition. I'm all about big rivalries, the culture, the grittiness that comes behind it, of guys talking smack and the going back and forth. I'm all for it.
You should. Number one, have you guys ever been to the Big House before?
No,
it's a goal of mine for sure.
Okay, you're talking about one of the most historic and largest football stadiums to ever exist in college football. I think them in Tennessee go back and forth, putting in extra seats so they can have the biggest stadium in the country. With the kind of money that's been put into Michigan football and the kind of stadium that they have, it's inexcusable to not have separate interests for the home and away team. It's just an inexcusable thing at this day and age. This is not the first time they've had an issue with another team. They just Penn State a couple weeks prior to that, they had an issue with them. And anybody who's ever been involved in football knows how intense it gets. We've seen fights at football games before. We see standoffs at the 50-yard line. There should be no way that the home and away team is using the same entrance. Michigan needs to get up with the times, and Michigan is totally, totally out of order for not having that taken care of.
Okay. Now, going forward, I'm not going to keep saying this rivalry week. That's obvious. But there's a few rivalry games that are taking place. Some are more intense than others. I want your opinion on who exactly has the most intense rivalry in college football. I've never been to a Bama and Auburn game, but I've seen the documentaries, right? I've seen how wild that gets blue. I know you remember, I forgot who they were. I think it was a Bama fan that stuck poison in the oak trees. You know, I remember that. I thought that was crazy, but I look at Ohio State and Michigan, and I'm like, these two teams can't stand to be in each other's presence. I've seen the locker room videos. So OSU, Michigan, Bama, Auburn, Army, Navy, which I know is not going to win, but I put it on here. Notre Dame and USC. Who, or even outside of that, who do you think has the most intense rivalry in college football?
Blue, I want to hear it because I see it. I see a team up there. Obviously, I got the Gator game on tonight. I want to see it with your team being.
I think y'all know where I'm going with it. I'm an Auburn alum. I was raised in Mobile, Alabama. If you're not from the state of Alabama, you don't understand. Like you really don't even get it. And if you've never been to an Iron Bowl, especially one where man, it's different. And I'm telling you, especially with the rise of Nick Saban with Alabama, and also with that game determining who went there with the Cam Newton situation, the comeback, the poisoning, the trees, the consistent unfortunate events that consistently happen after the game. I mean, the hatred runs deep. It's historic. And I for me, when you look at all the legends that have played in it, I don't even think it's a debate on the best rivalry in college football. It's Alabama, Auburn. It's the Iron Bowl. And it had the unfortunate happening of not being played so long because they hated each other so much that they didn't schedule the game through like the mid 1900s because they couldn't agree on not playing in Birmingham. And I'm telling you, Auburn, Alabama, if you're not from here, it's a different world down here.
Well, I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna have to agree with you. The Michigan, Ohio State is an intense rivalry, but those guys don't really hate each other. They want to win the game. They want to win the game bad. But people in Ohio and people in Michigan don't hate each other. The people that are Auburn and Alabama fans, they really don't like each other. And I've been to an Iron Bowl. I've been to the state of Alabama. They really like it causes real problems. My brother dated a girl whose dad graduated from Auburn, and like I'm a big Nick Saban guy. Coach Saban has helped me a lot in my coaching career over the years. And like, it's a problem. Like she wouldn't talk to me. Like it's a real issue. I mean, a guy got killed last year because they were arguing over the Alabama Auburn game. Like somebody gets shot every year. Harvey poisoned the trees. And he said he just got too much Bama in him. Like these people hate each other. It's not a game. It's not a joke. It's a different kind of hatred, a different kind of deal. I'm gonna go with Alabama Auburn.
Off of the rivalries that are mentioned, you know, all of them are definitely program rich. Army Navy is a big game, whether it's exciting sometimes or not very exciting sometimes. Just with the way that we've seen some offenses that are chosen to be ran, which it can be pretty cool. I've never been to any of these stadiums and seen one of these rivalry games deep. Now, the only games that I can speak for rivalries are of rivalries of my own fan, and I've been to Clemson, Carolina games plenty of times. That's a very fun rivalry game within itself, being from South Carolina. And you guys kind of knowing, you know, what that game is transpired of, you know, 5 wins for Carolina, then Dabo comes along and it's national championships and the whole 9 yards. So I would say in this instance, just off of, you know, the things that transpire between them, I got to go. I mean, probably Bama Auburn for sure. I mean, it's not jumping onto the wagon of what we're all probably thinking here, but I mean, that's a game in itself. I want to go to one day. Florida Georgia is my fun game. That's my favorite game to go to. I've been to 4 of them. It's a wild time there too. Largest cocktail party, but Bama Auburn, man. I'm going with SEC on that one.
Love it. All right, now getting back to the 2 rivals that have a lot to lose. This upcoming game tomorrow. I want to know, Coach, and maybe you know more than us. Who has the most intimidating game day environment? Because the Big House is bigger than I expected it to be, and we all know the horseshoe when it's packed, that can be, you know, very loud as well. So who do you think has the more intimidating game day environment?
I don't think that it's too intimidating to play at Michigan. I think Ohio State more so, and I would say that just because Ohio State wins more, they expect to compete for the national championship game. It's a little more ruthless there. Michigan is definitely a large stadium. It can get really really loud, but it's not the same. It's not the same environment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would probably say Ohio State too. Just because I know a lot of people who've been to both. If Michigan's not good, is not the same. Ohio State is consistently intimidating, regardless of how that team. And so I would go with Ohio State on that one.
I agree with the consensus. I think that, like you said, that's a good point. With Michigan's not doing it, it doesn't really seem like that. I mean, their fan base does travel well, which, I mean, like, if you give that to them, like, even whether they're good or bad, I feel like their fan base travels well. But I don't want to play in Ohio State. That's for sure. I feel like, I mean, those guys are. I mean, it's a big stadium in itself, and they're a very competitive team over the years, no matter what. So I'm gonna go with Ohio State.
Okay. Switching gears from them teams up north, man. Let's go down south for a little bit. Zach Evans. This question comes from me just because I wondered it, right? TCU tried very hard to keep Zach Evans in the offseason, but he still chose to leave, and he ultimately chose to go to Ole Miss. Ole Miss isn't doing so hot as of late, and we all know TCU is that they look like, I'm not going to say they're a lot, but it looks like they're going to be in the playoffs when it's time. So do you think Zach Evans should feel some type of regret for his decision to leave TCU for Ole Miss?
I would say no, not necessarily, because if he thinks that was the better choice for himself to be developed in, the offense and the way that they utilize him now, I mean, I think he's making a name for himself. I know that, I mean, the four of us, you can go back and think of, being committed to TCU and the caliber of a player he was coming out of high school. And, he flirted around with Auburn. He flirted around with LSU. He flirted around with Alabama. He flirted around with Florida and Georgia. And he flirted around with a lot of SEC schools. And, whatever transpired in his recruitment to where TCU kind of came along. I would say I like the way that Lane uses him. I think that he's definitely he's coming into himself. Maybe won't. I don't know with where he's sitting right now, where he's going to be, draft stock wise. But I think maybe sitting and getting developed a little bit and see where that offense kind of takes him is pretty good. But I don't think you can. I don't think he probably knocks himself for them just being undefeated right now. But
yeah, hindsight's always 2020. I'm from the state of Alabama. Listen, Judkins, I knew was going to be a stud. Day one, I mean, if you followed his career to the high school level here at Alabama, everyone knew he was going to be that guy. And Zach Evans can't blame anyone but himself for not really establishing himself as a starter over Judkins. And is there a guarantee that he starts over Miller at TCU right now at running back? Because I don't know if anyone's been following him. Miller's got over almost 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, averaging almost 7 yards per carry right now for TCU, on top of what Dugan's doing at quarterback. Hindsight's 2020. You don't know if he didn't gel with the scheme, gel with the new coaching staff, whatever it may have been, coming in with Sonny Dykes and that new coaching staff over at TCU. We know what Lane can do offensively. If Lane leaves, then he might regret it. But at the end of the day, man, at that time, he thought it was the best decision for him. Just because the team's undefeated does not mean he'd be a guaranteed starter just because he was a 5-star.
Sure.
He made a decision, and he made a decision with the information that he had at the time. I actually commend him because most guys run away from competition, and he ran to the toughest division of college football in the country, at Ole Miss in the SEC West. And so you could look back on it and say, well, TCU is playing really well. They may not have played as well with him. It could have been chemistry problems. It could have been all kind of things. Like, you don't know. I think he made a move to play for Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is a guy who offensively knows how to get you ready to play in the National Football League. So I don't think that I wouldn't say that he regrets his decision.
Okay. Now, Caleb Williams, 503 yards in his last game versus UCLA. I saw somebody on Twitter saying that he should be the Heisman frontrunner because of that game. Do you guys agree?
Yeah. I think right now he's playing better than Stroud, and statistically he's there too. And if he goes on and wins the Pac-12, I don't know if there's going to be a really good argument against him winning, especially if he has big performances against a top 15 Notre Dame squad and a top 10 Oregon squad. Winning the Pac-12 is going to be really, really hard to argue against Caleb Williams because he also has, not only is his passing stats insane, he has that extra ability, which I talked about earlier, with his legs to add even a whole nother, I would say, dynamic ability to his game. So I think Caleb Williams right now, I said it on the show Monday, would be my Heisman vote right this second. But I will say, if Blake Corum comes back from injury and leads Michigan there, I don't care what anyone says. It can be a quarterback award. It is a snub if Blake Corum doesn't win it if he puts up 150, 200 this weekend against Ohio State.
I was getting ready to go the same route you were getting that you touched on after talking about Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is having a heck of a season. He's a great athlete. Watching him and in games, I tune into USC, obviously, now with them being good, and watching Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. But I think everybody here probably saw the breakdown of Derrick Henry's Heisman season to the season that Blake Corum's having. He comes back healthy, and like Blue said, he comes back healthy, and he has another game like he's been having, even if it's one of his averaging in his game, not his big games where he had not a lot of rushing yards, but he scored 5 touchdowns, kind of thing. But if he comes back has a good game, man, I mean it might be a quarterback award.
Are you guys comparing Blake Corum to Derrick Henry?
No, it was just the statistics that were shown. I kind of circled. I think it's circled around Facebook and Instagram a little bit.
I'm just making sure.
No, never. I watched. I was a young kid watching Derrick Henry high school football games. I was watching them on YouTube whenever I was super young. No way. I just think Blake Corum's numbers to where Derrick Henry's numbers were through the point of the season that they show as a breakdown was eerily similar. Derrick Henry went on to win the award. So I'm just kind of giving a little bit of love to Blake Corum on the running back side of it. But I'd like to see how it folds out.
I think even more so than numbers, you have to look at impact. When you watch Derrick Henry play, it's more the way he made you feel. You can throw the numbers out a little bit. I think Caleb Williams right now is the guy that's playing like the best player in the country. And he needs to close it out. I mean, he still has Notre Dame, and he'll have a game with Oregon coming up. If he plays big in those games and leads his teams to wins, no matter what happens with Blake, I don't see how you don't give it to Caleb Williams. I think it's going to be really, really tough. Now, if Caleb falters and loses either one of those games, doesn't play particularly well, Blake could sneak in there. But people say this is a quarterback award, but running backs do win the award. But, man, you got to be special. You got to be really, really special. And Blake Corum is really good, but I don't know if he's had like a special performance against an elite team. If he goes 150, 200 against Ohio State, that could change my mind a little bit. That might can move the needle, but, the Big Ten hasn't been that strong this year.
All right.
For the record, I'm comparing the talent of Derrick Henry for all the viewers watching. I'm comparing the talent level between Derrick Henry and Blake Corum. We're talking about the stats that I saw floating around there that everybody shows out midway through X amount of games. These are the numbers. And this guy won the award. This guy is on pace to possibly win the award. Derrick Henry is a different breed. That man's doing 2,000-yard seasons in the NFL. It's.
I had to ask, man, because they threw me.
No, Coach, I definitely
threw me off when you said that.
It's different. I got to see him because I was a freshman at Auburn when they came in there in 2015, and so I got to see his last game. When seeing him in person is just a different level of athlete. Even at Bama, I mean, he looks slow in person, but he's still pulling away from people. It don't make no sense.
Can someone give me? I'm reading through the comments, and I saw a couple comments. Can somebody give me an update on this Florida State game?
Anybody watching, please do. All right, so moving forward, got to talk about Deion Sanders, right? What Coach Prime and what's going on with him? Oh my God, the rumors have been nonstop, right? It's Nebraska, it's Colorado, it's USF, it's Auburn. Now Colorado and USF being the two that he's linked to. How much stock are you putting into him going to I'm starting to hear more USF over Colorado because people just feel like that's a better fit. And I'd agree. But how much stock are you putting in him leaving Jackson State after this year?
Not a lot.
Going to one of these schools.
Not a lot of stock into it. I mean, right now, you see, I think a big indicator there was not the Auburn job was there, and if he wanted the best job out there, what better job than Auburn? You know what I mean? If he's looking for the best job at this point in his career, after what he's accomplishing now, then that's the job to take. I mean, Matt Rule got dialed in with Nebraska. That was announced today, to where Matt Rule is doing his thing there, which I think it was a good fit for him. I thought that he should have went back. I thought through certain parts of the season he should have been going back, been looking to go back to college. The smoke with USF and Colorado, I think that if it does come down to the two, I think I agree with the better fit thing. I think I like to see him in South Florida. I like to see him down there recruiting, in one of the bigger rich states, instead of trying to put a rebuild program kind of narrative on his back with Colorado. I think that USF's been pretty competitive. I think that would be a good spot for him.
It's going to depend on him, because I'm sure Coach is probably going to talk about this in a second. The offer to Colorado is legit. I've talked to some people who got some connections at On3. It's a legit offer, somewhere in between the $5 and $6 million a year range, and the ball is in Prime's court. That, from at least what I've heard, I don't know how much USF's offering or if there's been an offer, but the interest from Colorado is legit. And it's just going to depend on if Prime thinks that's a fit for him or not.
I don't want all the Jackson State fans in my DMs tonight. All right. I need a day off from the people at Jackson State, but I will say this. Prime, like any coach who's had success, has earned the right to look at his options, and regardless of how people feel about it, Colorado and USF would like for him to be their coach. And he's going to be able to make that decision for himself. What he's going to do, I think only he can answer that question. So I don't think that it's fair for me or anybody else to speculate on what he's going to do and why and what his reasoning would be and everything like that. But when you win, you get an opportunity to move up. And so everybody gets so offended, when you talk about Prime potentially leaving. But if you look at the history of sports, that's what happens. It doesn't have anything to do with Jackson State being an HBCU. It has to do with them being an FCS program. And so when you're an FCS program and you win at an FCS program, you move up to the next level. The same way that Jim Tressel did. He won at Youngstown State and he got the Ohio State job. Paul Johnson won the FCS championship at Georgia Southern, and then he got Navy, and then he ended up leaving Navy and going to Georgia Tech. Lance Leipold at Kansas won the Division III national championship 6 years in a row. At some point, you win and you move up, and that's just the game. It's just the business. It's not personal. It's not. There's not an agenda to get Coach Prime to leave. You just win. But Deion is going to be the one who gets to make that decision ultimately, because it's his life and it's his future, and he's earned the right to make that decision.
And two things, I just talked about this on my show. I just jumped off of it, and I had coaches back here because I got the same thing. There were two other FCS coaches mentioned with Colorado, and Troy Taylor from Sac State and Brent Vegan from Montana State. Kobe, I just want to ask, did you see the meltdown on Twitter from either of those fan bases?
I did not.
It's never personal. It's just business. Like, man, Chris Kleiman is doing a hell of a job at K-State since he's moved up from North Dakota State. North Dakota State's lost multiple coaches. That just happened when you win. And I said this on my show, you can't get mad at reporters for doing their job and reporting the news, because if they weren't reporting on it, you'd be pissed that they weren't doing their job. So you got to stop acting like it's like reporters got some sort of hidden thing. Like, your job is to report on this team and what the offers are. And if you're mad at the reporter for that, you got to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, and it's like you just mentioned, when you talk about North Dakota State, who's been the most dominant FCS program in the last decade and a half, they've had multiple coaches leave during that run, and the coach that they got now is going to probably end up leaving and take another job. That's all in the games, you know. And so it's just a matter of options and winning. And anybody who wins at any level is going to have a lot of options because people love winners.
You know, I've been saying this in the past few videos as well. Every time I've been asked to address it, he's going to leave Jackson State at some point. We are no longer in the age of college football where college coaches are staying one place for 10 plus years. You're rarely going to find that. So, you know, I fully expect him to leave sooner rather than later. I think every Jackson State fan just wants to know a set time and a set date because, you know, like they're having so much success right now. Understandably, you don't want to see that leave just yet. You want to hold on to that for just a little bit longer. So I think they just want a set time and a set date, and it's just unrealistic. It's not going to happen. You know, I think it's a little they're just a little nervous about, you know, when they hear these rumors and they kind of get on the defensive side and, you know, everything like that. But, you know, I can understand where they're coming from. But, I mean, realistically, he's not going to be here, you know, for 10 plus years. So I think, you know, you having a great AD in Ashley Robinson, have enough confidence in him that he knows or has an idea who he's going to go to next just in case that does happen. You know, because, I mean, he hears the rumbles just like everybody else does. So, I mean, if I'm him, I'm at least thinking in my mind, well, if he does leave, who do I have lined up? Who would I go to after this to make sure that I can continue to build off of what he's built here at Jackson State? So, you know, that's just my take on that. But moving forward, I saw Joel Klatt. You know, I love Joel Klatt and all his takes, man. He's one of my favorite guys with college football. But I saw him mention something about the college football playoff committee should be dismantled. Right? He basically said that these guys just come in, you know, they get a little free breakfast at whatever hotel they're meeting at, and you know, they discuss things and their opinion. They can't get over their own bias. And he does think that the playoff committee should be dismantled, and there should be another way going forward to decide who gets into the playoffs, especially with the 12-team playoff coming in the near future. How do you feel about that? Do you agree that the committee should be dismantled? I wouldn't even know how else you would decide if they are who gets in, but you know, what's your opinions on that?
I don't know what Blue. You're kind of doing the same thing. You're kind of a little stumped. Where do we go from there? I mean, do you want to go back to like, is it supposed to be like a combined of record and AP poll and rankings and all that stuff, and then it's just using a software to generate it? I feel like you have to have people sitting down and talking about it. I feel like I don't know where else you want to try to go from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was my take. It's like, so if you're going to say dismantle it, I need you to like toss back some ideas on where you would go. Because I mean, everyone hated the BCS because then you couldn't use the quote unquote eye test. But then when you got people in there, you know that they come with biases, you know that, you know, people see the game differently, or, you know, with like voting, and Coach Reed's probably voted for top 25's awards. Same here for me at the FCS level. Every voter out of the 54 voters puts weight into different criteria, and that just comes with it. And not everyone's going to be happy about the rankings, but I just think more transparency would be what Joel Klatt should probably aim for. Is that I don't think dismantling the committee is the move. It's just being more transparent on how, why, and, you know, like the reasoning behind the decisions that are made.
You know, when you're going to say that it should be dismantled, you have to follow that up and offer a solution. And so when you say that and you don't offer a solution, then it just leaves an open-ended conversation that nobody really knows what to do. It would seem like with the 12-team playoff that every conference champion in the Power 5 is going to get an automatic bid, and then you'll start going to the at-large teams and things of that nature. But I'm pretty pleased with the playoff pool that we've gotten, you know, so far.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I feel like I don't even know what a logical solution would be to follow up with that. I would say it's more so of, I mean, what are you going to do? Take every single D1 athletic director and make it a Congress where you have somebody as a speaker and do that? I mean, I don't know what like you said, if you're going to offer to dismantle it, follow it up with a solution. It can't be well, I just think it should be done, and so be it. Then shed some light. Let's hear why. You know what I mean? I don't have a logical reason as to why.
Real quick, I want to touch on Wayne Morgan made a comment going back to the Deion thing where he said a lot of reporters are pushing the leave narrative a little harder to have something hot to talk about, and that goes both ways, and not to get upset with the fans. I don't think that I've heard a reporter say that he should leave or not leave. I don't think that anybody has given an opinion on whether he should leave or stay, in terms of that particular situation. I know that I've never said that he should leave, but the facts do remain that those schools are pursuing him to be their head football coach, and that's just a fact of the matter, and that's a fact of reporting.
Yeah, and well, going back to the conversation we're just having, I think people are confusing that if they don't 100% agree with the rankings, that they're wrong. It doesn't matter how much you expand it, who you put in. There's always going to be somebody left out, feeling spited. I mean, look, you've got the college football playoff, and you've had the BCS. You're going to have a 12-team playoff. You got the FCS at 24 teams, and Kobe, you saw what happened.
Oh yeah,
with the whole FAMU thing and the Austin P thing. There is always going to be someone.
I played at Austin P, and I'm still pissed.
Exactly. It doesn't matter who you put in, because if you and if you put in Austin P and FAMU, guess what? There's going to be another fan base somewhere who got taken out that is going to be feeling the same way. I just think people have that confirmation bias aspect where it's like, okay, well, if I don't agree with that team being in there, we should just dismantle it all. And I think that's kind of where the anger is coming from.
I see in the comments, and I don't feel like we've kind of answered to a couple of the comments. In the comments, there's some people that are talking back and forth saying that they think it should be every conference champion. And I think one of the guys is saying to another person, well, it's the SEC position themselves that way, so they have to deal with it, and every other school in the country has to deal with it. How is it fair? Touching on the dismantling of the college football playoff, I mean, as a resolution, if it is, in theory, every conference champion should go, well, what happens when we have all these mergers and all these other things, and if Oklahoma and Texas come and prove out in the SEC, and the SEC has, what would that be? Would that be 16 teams, or would that be
16?
That would be 16 teams. Okay. So 16 teams, and with Oklahoma and Texas now being the SEC, say that out of 16 teams, 12 of them are ranked. I mean, it's another thing. I mean, there's so many different factors that go into it. It's tough,
I got you. Now moving forward with it's time to pick some games. I want to talk about the biggest games coming up this week. All right. First off, of course, Ohio State and Michigan. I look at this game and I say to myself, this is kind of wonky, right? Because Ohio State to me is not good in pass defense. Okay, but Michigan, they not really the best at passing the ball either. Their DNA is to run the ball, but you don't know if you're gonna have Blake Corum. So like I look at this game and I'm just like, I'm kind of unsure. But I want to know, who do you guys got when it comes to Ohio State versus Michigan?
The Blake Corum thing is just like the biggest question mark in the world, because if he's fully healthy, man, it becomes a different game. Because going back to what Coach said, you saw what happened when he got taken out. He played 2 quarters last week, had over 100 yards rushing, and Michigan was rolling. They take him out and they don't score again, other than like a field goal or 2. He's so important to this offense because J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback. He's just not there in terms of leading the offense as the number one option. The question becomes this. You look at last year's game and what Michigan used to win. They dominated both lines of scrimmage and they ran the football. They're also able to get pressure on C.J. Stroud. Who's going to step up at the defensive end spots? Because you don't have Aiden Hutchinson, you don't have a Jabo, and Cora might not be 100%. Is their offensive line able to establish their type of game on Ohio State's front seven? And Ohio State's defense, you can say what you want about, they're not great. They are much improved from last season. Going and getting the DC from Oklahoma State was a big win for them. I think Ohio State's defense has taken enough step forward. If Corum's not healthy, man, I think Ohio State wins this one and they might cover the spread. So give me the Buckeyes just through the question mark surrounded about Corum.
I'm going with same things you're touching on with the the question mark of what the game's going to be with Blake playing. I think Ohio State, when you see Michigan, and you watch these teams that are obviously, top 4 teams in the country, and you see them, everybody can tell when you watch a team a couple times during the season, or you follow that team a lot during the season, you watch them when they're rolling, and whenever, you know what I mean by when they're rolling. Like when you see a couple drives get put together and what the product on the field is, both of them can be extremely, extremely unstoppable. When they start rolling, it's tough. But in the environment, the way that it's going to be, I'm going to go with what I think is everybody else maybe agreeing with. I think Ohio State is definitely going to go ahead and do it. Defense-wise, I'm not sure as to who, upper hand. I mean, if you want to go through all the analytics and stuff of, well, they're rated X in the passing game, X in the running game. I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud with a C.J. Stroud was my gut of the.
So Blake Corum not being healthy, I mean, he's the best player that Michigan has. I do think he's going to play. I just don't see any way unless he's, on a stretcher that he doesn't come out and at least try to play. But that still doesn't mean that he's healthy. That still doesn't mean that he's 100%. I also think Ohio State has a lot of pressure on him. There were reports that like Ryan Day's job is on the line in this one game, which is crazy. Dan Woken from USA Today reported that today, that there could be some job implications there, which I think is totally ludicrous, but that's where we are. I think that even if you got Blake Corum, though, you're going to need J.J. McCarthy to make a few throws to be able to beat Ohio State. This isn't the Penn State defense. Like, they're not going to be able to line up and run for 400 yards rushing on Ohio State. So he's going to have to be able to complete some passes down the field, which he hasn't shown that he can consistently do yet. I think it comes down to C.J. Stroud just being the best quarterback on the field that day. And I think Ohio State wins this game by 10 points.
Okay. Ohio State by 10. What do you say, Clay?
I like the prediction on the 2 scores.
Okay. Now, moving forward, in-state rivalry. Me and Clay, we in South Carolina. USC and Clemson, Spencer Rattler, DJ Uyunglele. Who you got?
USA. I was watching soccer earlier. Yeah, USC comes out and plays the way they did against Tennessee. Clemson's in for a long night, but do they play like that back-to-back weeks? I don't think so. We have friends who, in South Carolina, it's a divided state. I feel like it's very equal across the board with USC to Clemson fans.
Yeah,
a lot of those Clemson fans were South Carolina fans 7-8 years ago, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that one. But I'm going with Clemson, man.
Yeah, South Carolina's, I think, allowing almost 200 yards per game on the ground. This is a Will Shipley game. If I'm Clemson, I am running the football straight down South Carolina's throat. And also, I think Clemson's defense is significantly better than what Tennessee had. We all know the one critique we all had about Tennessee is they can't stop anyone. That came to fruition. And then you also had the Hendon Hooker injury, which really took the energy out of that team. I think Clemson wins this one. I think they covered the 14.5-point spread too.
Yeah.
Guys, let's not overthink it. Let's not get ridiculous. Clemson's going to win this football game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's keep it moving.
The consensus.
All right, now Bama and Auburn.
Let's not overthink this. Everyone at Bama on 3. Everybody, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Let's get the thumbs up, Coach. Get a thumbs up.
Hey, Blue, I know it hurt you to say that.
Man, I'm an Auburn alum, and I already know what's going to happen. I love Cadillac. He's inspired the team, but, man, we ain't got it this year. It's not – Robbie Ashford is not that guy at quarterback. All I'm hoping is we can keep them under the 22-point spread this weekend in Bryant-Denny.
What Cadillac Williams has done for himself, though, is he's shown that he's going to get to lead somebody's program in the near future. I'm sure whoever comes in at Auburn is going to keep him on staff, but in the near future, Cadillac Williams will be running the program, and I wouldn't be surprised if down the line you see him back at Auburn as the head coach.
I definitely got a lot of love for Cadillac. That was my childhood guy growing up, being a Bucks fan, man. I had a Cadillac jersey as a kid. My mom was actually at the game when he had the big injury. That was my like growing up, like childhood, like favorite Buccaneer player for being a young kid. I got a lot of love for Caddy.
I don't have it in the screen. I have an autographed Cadillac Williams jersey, like from Auburn, Go Crazy Cadillac and everything. So
I have a Cadillac Williams autograph from a friend that was at the golf course, and he was out there and said, "You're Cadillac Williams." He said, "Of course." And he knew that I was a fan. It was like, "I need you to sign something." So he got the cart girl to grab the check slip, like a check, like to write down an order at a restaurant, and he signed that.
And shout out to Wayne Morgan for the update. He said Florida is leading 24-21 at the half. Okay.
Shout out Wayne Morgan.
AR-15 looking good so far. All right. Notre Dame and USC. Who you got?
Let's not overthink this, guys. Let's not overthink this.
I love Marcus Freeman, though. I just want to say this. I'm so glad he got it turned around, and all the Notre Dame fans and people in the media calling for him to lose his job after the 0-3 start. They are not looking good. I still think Marcus Freeman is going to be a great coach at Notre Dame. And so I'm so glad he turned it around, but Caleb Williams is too much. Give me USC winning this one.
I got the respect for Notre Dame fans with our last guest on the podcast, Notre Dame fan, and then I have some Notre Dame fan friends. Let's not overthink this, bro. They're so hit or miss with they're so inconsistent with they could play up to people, but they also play down to a lot of people. I think that loss earlier in the season, I think we all know what I'm talking about, is one of those. You paid them how much money?
Hey,
how much did you pay? Whose pen went to that checkbook? That's the question.
I'm gonna go with USC here. I think just Caleb Williams is gonna be too much. Jordan Addison is gonna be a problem. I do think it's gonna be competitive. Marcus Freeman is great, especially with getting the defense playing at a really high level. I don't think it's gonna be easy. But USC's got a lot on the line. You got a Heisman Trophy on the line. You got a playoff bid on the line. I think that they come out really ready to play from the start, and that USC gets to win.
All right. Now, final stretch of the show. We gotta. How we ended. Overreaction. Not an overreaction.
Hang on. We're missing your favorite game. No. There's a game your favorite team's playing this weekend too, Kobe. We got to talk Oregon State on the road. That's a top 20-something matchup, man. You gonna skip over that one?
Come on, man. Come on, man. What we talking about? Oregon State? Okay, yeah. What are they? 24th in the country?
21st.
21st? Yeah. Listen, Oregon. By 28. By 20. Listen, I'm not worried about Oregon State. All right, they had their little moments versus us in the past, right? Very few far and in between. I'm not worried about them as long as Bo Nix is out there doing what he do best and we putting up 40 points a game. Who can really go in a shootout with Oregon besides USC in the Pac-12? What he saying?
Oregon. But you guys are 3-point favorites. 3-point favorites on the road.
I like the confidence. I had to write down for a take.
Nobody, I'm confident in saying this. Nobody can go toe-to-toe with us in a shootout other than USC in the Pac-12. I'm just that confident. Our defense isn't great. All right, but I'm hoping Noah Sewell will step up. Justin Flo, we'll get that going. But if they want to shoot out, it's not gonna happen with us. Like we gonna come out victorious. That's all I'm saying. So
I saw Coach's face. I'm glad you finished that sentence. You said no one in the Pac-12 can go with us in a shootout, and Coach was kind of looking, waiting for you to be like, except for USC.
Yeah, except for USC. But Coach, what's your opinion on it?
Dan Lannon is my guy, man. Close friend of mine. We go way, way back. I love what he's doing at Oregon. It was no doubt in my mind that he was going to find success. I think he wins tomorrow. He sets up a huge matchup for himself and his program in USC, and it's going to be a crazy deal. I might have to fly out there for it.
Hey, I still want to fly out there for a game with Oregon. I know this one is going to be at Oregon State, but man, I have to experience it in person. All right, so we're gonna end it with overreaction, not overreaction. Y'all know how this goes. I read something out to you. You tell me if it's a reaction or overreaction and why you think so. But by the way, these are not from me. I just see it on the internet and I'm like, this is gonna be good for the show. All right. Overreaction or not an overreaction. Spencer Rattler last week showed the nation that he is still a first round pick.
Overreaction.
I was waiting. I was making sure.
Overreaction. I'm gonna tell you what. I am glad that he had a great game against Tennessee because his confidence had been way down. Mm-hmm. I've been one of the people that has been very, very critical of the way he's played. I've been so critical that his dad DM'd me. And so I'm glad that he played well. I'm glad that he has started to have some success. But I do think that's an overreaction on the day one pick. But I do think that he's positioned himself where I thought he was going to be completely out the draft to now a guy that's going to sneak in bottom of day 2, top of day 3.
Yeah, overreaction all day. I mean, just a trivia question. What are the only 2 teams this season he's thrown 2+ touchdown passes with 0 interceptions?
Okay. Did not know that.
Overreaction. I thought that you see this guy coming out of high school, and then you saw the ability that Lincoln Riley had at Oklahoma, and you had like hopes for him. You're like, okay, we got to see these guys come through, and now it's okay. He's supposed to be the guy, and then he kind of does his thing, and then goes to Carolina. Being in South Carolina, you hear it all the time, like, oh, we got Spencer Rattler now. Like, oh, it's a wrap. Like, we're going to be competitive. We're going to do something. For him to have the game that he did was like oh, my gosh. Like, I'm pretty sure that is single-handedly probably the best performance in South Carolina quarterback history in terms of stats. Not what the game was with being an upset over number 5. I just don't think anybody statistically has had a game like that. Steven Garcia surely didn't, and I don't believe Connor Shaw did. Other than that, who was the next person in line? Would that be
Dylan Thompson wasn't even close to that.
I wasn't going to say no. I mean, he does have the upset over number 3 Georgia in Carolina. I was in Carolina that weekend. That was crazy. But I don't think that statistically anybody's had the stats that he does. I think that he cemented himself a little bit in the Carolina record book, especially with, an upset like that of that caliber, but I don't think he's a day 1 draft pick.
No, overreaction, not an overreaction. Michigan doesn't stand a chance without Blake Corum because J.J. McCarthy cannot throw the football. And I saw this from another YouTuber, honestly. So what do you guys think? Overreaction, not overreaction?
I'm going to also say that's an overreaction. Jim Harbaugh can coach football. They have a great offensive line led by Sharon Moore. And J.J. McCarthy is not Peyton Manning, but he can complete a couple of passes if need be. I wouldn't say that they don't stand a chance at all. I wouldn't say that. They have a winning pedigree. You talking about a team that beat Ohio State last year on their way to the college playoffs. This isn't just a one-man band. It is their best player, though, but I expect for a team in the Big Ten that's a playoff team to be able to produce some offense, especially after having a week. See, it's different when you're in a game and your guy goes down and you don't have a plan because he went down, but now you've had a week to prepare and know you need to have something in place in case he can't play.
I'm gonna take the middle road. I think I don't think it's that big of overreaction. I think the biggest question mark is Donovan Edwards healthy? Because if he's healthy and can take the kind of load off of Corum, then I think they're rolling. But if their running game is not at 100%, either one of them, I don't like Michigan's chances. I don't, if they can't run the football, man, I don't think J.J. McCarthy wants to get in a battle with C.J. Stroud airing the ball out.
I agree. Both aspects of coaching blue. I will say, if Michigan can't play their game of football, to the fullest extent with having a healthy stable of running backs, it's not probably going to be the outcome that they want or the performance that obviously they're capable of. But Harbaugh can coach football. They're still talented. They're still a top 4 team. It is a rivalry game. I wouldn't say it's an overreaction. I wouldn't say it's not an overreaction. It's one of those things where we're gonna all see on Saturday what kind of transpires. But I think I'm gonna go with coaches.
All right.
Dogs, I tell you what, there could be a car go by or something, and they don't stop.
That's how they be, man. That's how they be.
I know the same way. Don't worry about it.
Two more left. I'm gonna get y'all up out of here. All right, overreaction, not an overreaction. No matter how many teams are in the playoffs, the same few schools, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, will always be crowned champion every other year.
Not an overreaction. That's just the truth. The winners are gonna win. We have a 24-team playoff in FCS. North Dakota State has won 8 out of the last 10. We have the playoffs at the Division II level. Ferris State, Northwest Missouri State, Valdosta State consistently win. Division III has been Wisconsin, Whitewater, and Mount Union. You can make it 50 teams. The cream will always rise to the top. Winners win. Losers make excuses. The best teams in college football are not going to change unless the other schools make a similar commitment that those schools have made, with very few exceptions. Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, USC. I'm trying to make sure LSU, with very few exceptions, will consistently win the most championships.
It's going to be the same dynasties. We've seen it through college football. There's always that group of 5-6 teams that are good at the exact same time that dominate that period. You might see some names switch out, like Coach said, every once in a while, where you'll get a generational talent where Cam Newton will lead an Auburn to a national title, or you'll have a Cincinnati team that sneaks in and has a run. But the days of, anyone can win, we know the favorites year in and year out. The names might switch around, but it's going to be the same dynasty runs that we see in college football. That's just how the sport is, because recruiting is the lifeblood of a program. Those same teams are going to keep getting the top talent.
100% agree with the both of you. Adding on to what Coach said, there's a lot of other teams out there that are very program rich. And if they did make the commitment that Coach has touched on, if they did make that commitment to, even if it costs, the dollar amount to cover so-and-so's buyouts, making that commitment to say, we are capable of this, and we're going to try to stick to being capable of this and building this and keeping this. Yes, it's going to be the same teams, like he said, the LSUs, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, Ohio States, and so on and so forth. There's other teams out there that have the capability. You have very big program-rich teams that have the ability if they want to make those commitments. Now, right now, with the social media era being a very big influence and where we are, in the world of football, whoever recruits the best and whoever can develop the best at the level of football that everybody watches more so in Division I are going to be the teams. The days, like you said, the days of going back to where anybody can win it is pretty far gone, man. We're very deep into this here college football thing. I think it's definitely not an overreaction.
All right, now just a warning for this last one. I promise you, I do not believe this. Again, this came from a YouTuber who also talks about Power 5 football. I think he's Depressed Ginger, that's his name on YouTube. Y'all can go to him about this. I'm just asking. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is better than Caleb Williams.
just take it off the screen. No one believes that.
And it was a pleasure tonight. I appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate y'all's time.
No, like he said, Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA is better than Caleb Williams. I don't know why he said it. I don't know why he said it.
That's his right to his opinion for sure.
For sure. Right to your opinion. I respect it.
His opinion and his opinion only.
Yeah. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure on that one.
Hey, all right. Well, listen, man. With that being said, y'all, this is episode 3 of FBS Fridays on the Blitz City podcast. Again, y'all can follow the Blue Bloods podcast. His information is down below. My guy Clay McCarter, his information is down below. And of course, Coach Reed, y'all all know who he is. Y'all can definitely follow him on social media as well and look out for everything that he does. But with that being said, man, we out. Peace.